Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Diane Hayden, and welcome to our weekly podcast for Natural Nutmeg Magazine, where we interview our expert contributors and writers on topics ranging from nutrition, fitness, natural medicine, spirituality, green living, and how to live a healthier, more holistic lifestyle. I'm excited to have with me today Eilis Philpott. She's the owner of Soul Healing Journey and the Academy for Soul Healing. She has been a healing practitioner and teacher for over 20 years, and she specializes in Akashic records and Akashic field healing, which is what we're going to be talking about today. So I'm excited about that. How are you, Ailish?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Yeah. We're actually going to be doing a demo on me. And I thought that that would be kind of a cool idea for people who've never been exposed to the Akashic records and, aura healing and really don't know what that is all about. They can get an idea of how you work. And I just, I've had a little bit of experience with it. I have had my Akashic records read before, and it was just amazing as far as the accuracy and just insight into my soul purpose and why I'm here and what my soul wants to do in this lifetime and that kind of thing. And I think it's really important, especially now. I feel like after this last year coming out of 2020, that a lot of people are being given a chance to really figure these things out. Like, they may have been in jobs that they either got laid off from, or now they're able to work from home, that kind of thing. And they've had time, I think, to really, just kind of like settle down and, be quieter and give some time to, think about, what is my purpose here and what am I supposed to be doing? And many people realizing that whatever career they've been in is really not fulfilling for them anymore. So I wanted to actually do this to help people understand what it's about and the benefit of it. And just connect with you to get these kinds of healings and services.
Cool. Thank you so much, Diane. Yeah, talking about the last year and how stuff has shifted and altered for so many of us. We've had to learn new ways of working and take a break sometimes. And the energy has shifted a lot. So because the energy has shifted, so many people are looking at new ways of being. And in looking at new ways of being, it's like stuff is coming up for healing. So this is one of the ways that we can look at what it is that's coming up that was always supposed to come up, and I'll kind of get into that in a minute, but heal it so that then we can step into that next phase of our life, which we have been forced energetically to go. So I'm going to just briefly explain what the Akashic records are and what the difference is between an Akashic record reading and an Akashic field healing is. So for many, many, many years, decades, the mystics have talked about information in the ethers, and that all information is stored in the ethers, in the library, different references to where this information is stored. And it has never been proved until quantum physics, quantum mechanics, where now it is known that there is a 0 point field where all information is stored. And by all information, that means all information of everything, the planet, the universe, and ourselves individually. So in our personal records, we have, as we're living in a linear experience, we have our past, present, and future potential. So that's what's contained in the records. And every moment of every day, your records are being written on, so to speak, energetically. And each moment, there are numerous potential possibilities for where you go next.
So let me just clarify. So it's not like there's one path decided before you are born.
Right.
It's basically there are multiple paths and all different ways that you could accomplish your soul purpose, let's say. Um,
Absolutely.
and also maybe paths that, am I correct in saying that you could choose where you don't accomplish your soul purpose? because of choices that you make?
Yeah, I don't think my belief is that you don't ever not accomplish your soul purpose because, and this is kind of going a whole other direction, but we're multidimensional beings. So every choice that can be made is being made in a different dimension.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, all the potentials are being lived out in some way, which is part of what the soul came here to learn. Because we don't in reality live in a linear construct. But that's a whole other conversation for a whole other day.
Right. I'm like, oh my God, I have a million questions about that, but
Yeah. Let's not even go there then.
right.
So what an Akashic field healing is, it's accessing the Akashic records to find trauma that has been stored in the records because it hasn't been resolved. So it either has been denied or it hasn't been resolved, or we're in denial about it. And therefore, in the linear construct, our access to our future potential is limited. So it's impacting us here and now in our present life.
And it can
yeah,
be trauma from this lifetime and past lifetimes.
yeah.
Right.
So what often happens is, particularly, and I'm going to find out the intensity level of the trauma. If you have a very high intensity level trauma, which a lot of people are having these days, it tends to be the trend. It usually means that the trauma has come from at least one lifetime, if not more, usually multiple, and could be playing out in this lifetime in the same way or in a more subtle way. And that's part of the uncovering of the picture when we get into doing the reading itself, into doing the interpretation of the information that we get.
Mm-hmm.
How it's done is using a chart system and a pendulum. That's my preferred method of dowsing or kinesiology. And there are a number of words, so to speak, on each of the charts. But energetically, there are unlimited possibilities associated with that word. So the word on the chart, the energy, or the word on the chart is kind of our starting point. And then we look to see what's coming up around that word. And it'll make more sense once we get into doing it.
Yeah. One other thing I wanted to point out, when I had my Akashic records read, the practitioner said to me something like, you have some people around you, I think they're friends of yours, that and she actually gave me a number, like how many there were, and she said that are friends with you because you serve a purpose for them. And at the time, I'm pointing this out for a reason, because I think that a lot of times people will hear something and they're either not ready to hear it, or it just hasn't played out yet in their life. And so at the time I was like, absolutely not. I'm going through like all of my friends and, people in my family, whatever, that I can think of that I would like, agree with that. And I couldn't come up with anybody. So this was probably like 4 years ago. Well, over the last 4 years, sure enough, she said there's 4 people. Sure enough, there are absolutely 4 people that have been, that were in my life, and a couple that still are, that I absolutely agree with her now.
Yeah.
So it was either something I was in denial about, or I just couldn't see it, like I couldn't see, how that was possible. So I think even if something comes up that doesn't resonate with you right now, you need to just keep tuck it away somewhere. and remember that, going into the future, because things will change and it will become more apparent that, that was absolutely 100% true.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's part of the reason why it's like when we're having our conversation and what's coming up, it's like, oh, it doesn't really resonate with me. And it's like, well, this is what I'm getting. This is what I'm sensing. And just hold it and be open. So that is the general gist of a session. So I will open the energy, connect with your Akashic records with your permission. So you can never do this without a person's permission. Some people can't just do it. I will go through the core trauma, core fear, core belief of the trauma, and then some additional and some secondary energy patterns. I'll find out what your growth potential is, Check in to see if you need to do any integration follow-up, and then we'll close the session and do the closing prayer.
Okay.
Okay. So I am going to start by taking a nice deep breath, and you can too. I am divine. I am unconditional love. I'm fully connected to universal energies. I request that my subconscious and conscious mind be healthy and connected for the purposes of this session, in the highest good of myself and Diane. Thank you. I ask to be given permission, or to be given access to the Akashic record of Diane Hurlbut, born on, excuse me, born on 2/8/68. And are we connected? We are connected. So I always like to double check to make sure we're connected. All right, so excuse me, something clearing there. All right, so the first thing we're going to look for is the core trauma. So I'm using my handy dandy chart. And I try not to look at what it is beforehand. So I'm kind of doing it at an angle that I can't see what the word is until I actually look at it, so that my conscious mind doesn't interfere with the process. That's just me. That's how I like to do it. So you have a core trauma of worn out. And knowing the kind of work you do, I should say as well that I don't know Diane very well. So this is only the second time we've chatted, but energetically, I feel we're connected. Many of us who are doing spiritual work at this time are soul weary. That's what I call it. It's like we've been doing work for lifetimes and in other dimensions and so much that at this stage, it's like, oh my God, I'm so tired. I can't go to bed and have a rest because that's not going to fix it. It's not that body tired. It's a soul weary, worn out. So you've got that going on. I don't want to relate it back to past lives per se, other than you've been doing a lot of work for a long time. So how does that feel to you?
100% accurate.
Okay, good.
Yeah. And I think it's been that way for a few years, but this last year has absolutely like brought that out between just, what my job didn't get easier with the pandemic, like a lot of people. My job got busier because
Right.
I had to shift to do many different things to change, not really the direction of the magazine, but how we were going to do distribution, how were we going to get the word out for people. And I went into more of I started working more with practitioners to help them figure out ways to get their word out from a virtual perspective, like teaching some of them how to do Zoom classes and helping them with digital. Like we launched these podcasts last April, I think it was, as a result of this. So people could have a digital presence basically, and we could use these to get, email them out to our readership. And so with all of that, and then we launched another magazine in Florida last year too. So yeah, I mean, last year was just crazy.
Right.
Crazy.
And that's like the human level of being worn out. That's not even taking into account the soul level of being worn out. And that's what we look at in these Akashic records, and the healing is on a soul level. What is it that you want to heal? And so on a human everyday living your life level, that's a reflection of the soul weary that you've got going on.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to find out what level it's at. 0 to 50. There's high. Very high. 96 out of 100.
I don't doubt it.
Yeah. So what this tells me is it's a major issue that's coming up for healing because you're ready to heal it. So it means that you've done enough work to kind of peel back some of the layers of the onion. So you're not starting at the skin layer of the onion, and you're not even starting at layer 2, 3, or 4. You're way in there, and you've done enough that you can get to this core trauma that has been getting in your way, and heal it and move on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's
That's good.
find out what the core fear is. So the core fear is a fear that's generated as a result of this core trauma. Let me just double check that. All right, core fear of not caring enough.
Interesting.
Now, I will explain what that means to me, and then you can give me your take on what it, and I am writing it down because I need that to have it written down to clear it at the end. So a fear of not caring enough. If you're so busy and worn out, and your mission here is to care and to serve and to do whatever it is to support your people, whoever your people are, and you're feeling worn out, there's a fear that part of you will go, I just don't care anymore. I'm too tired. So I don't care enough. I can't put any more into this. And that's the fear, that you will get to that place.
Yeah, I can see that.
Anything else come up around not caring enough? A fear of not caring enough?
It's interesting. I was thinking that you were going to say a fear of, well, I guess this is kind of the same thing, but a fear of not providing enough value, and
Right.
also a fear of, if I make changes, will that result in not providing enough value, and will that result in, not making enough money?
Yeah.
I
Okay.
thought it was going to come to like a financial thing, but but to me, the money thing is more on the surface. This
Yeah.
not caring is actually a deeper level.
Absolutely. That's what I was going to say. It's like the value. What is the value that you think you're giving? And what is it that you're afraid value-wise you can't give if you're worn out? So it's bringing it to the next layer deeper. And money is a reflection, it's an energy. Income is a reflection of how you receive. So if you have the fear of not caring enough, it's showing up in these other ways as well.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
All right, let's see what your core belief is around this core trauma and core fear. And it is, what's the point of trying?
Yeah, I've said that in the last year.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like,
It also I think, we've been talking about just in general with my business, but I've let a lot of people's mindset around the pandemic get to me. Like the fact that people are afraid, they don't trust their own intuition, they don't trust their immune system, they're running out and getting a vaccine, and they're posting it on Facebook, and they're like, oh my God, I'm free, I got the vaccine, so I'm free to go do whatever. And it is like supercharged for me. Yeah. Because I feel like, what are you doing? I mean, I have a lot of beliefs about it. Anyone who follows me on Facebook knows clearly what my beliefs are about it. And listen, part of me is like, okay, everybody has to make their own choices, right? You gotta be free to make your own choice. That's what you're all about. You're about, people having freedom and things like that, whether it's natural medicine or, traditional medicine, whatever. But I so strongly believe that this, vaccine is going to cause people harm. I've already seen it happening to even people personally that I know, that I'm afraid for people. And like that whole emotion comes into it, and gets me so frustrated. Like, why are people doing this? And, like, don't they realize this isn't going to solve anything? It's going to make it worse. And then, it's genetic therapy. You may not, I mean, literally had physicians say to me, naturopaths, we don't have a protocol for this. Like, if this goes into autoimmune disease or whatever, like, it's not like we can take a food out of their diet, or we can give them a supplement or whatever. Like, we don't have a way to fix this. And so I end up caring so much about that it just, then I just get angry. Like,
Right.
oh, why bother even trying to educate these people? They don't care.
Right. Yeah, and that relates back to the worn out, in that because of the intensity of this past year, between the COVID, the elections, vaccines, everything that's coming that we don't know what's coming, the whole thing,
Right.
it is very conducive to just giving up and saying, what's the point in trying?
Right.
Yeah, totally. So it'll be interesting to see what shift happens when we do the affirmation for this one.
I can't wait, because I need it.
All right, so I'm going to see what chart you're looking for next. So it's like, you have a vow or a contract. So it's an emotional block. And what an emotional block is, remember I said at the beginning that having trauma in your field limits your access to your future potential. Having an emotional block means that you're emotionally blocked, and therefore blocked from, so physically blocked from accessing your future potential. So we're going to find out there are other ones, but this is either a contract or a vow. So
now, does everybody have a contract or a vow, or this is something specific to
no.
me? Okay.
So everybody has a core trauma, a core fear, and a core belief. And then there are about 10 more charts, and I'm looking to see which ones you want to clear. So we don't go into every chart. It's just what you want to look at that day.
Okay.
Charts or vows come up a good bit of the time. There are some charts that very rarely come up, and there are some charts that very often come up. And what I've noticed over the years is that trend alters depending on what's going on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
So if one of the regular ones come up, I'll tell you.
Okay.
So vow, yes. You have a vow of disappointment. And I shall talk about that. Vow of. So that can kind of go two ways. It can be that if you've made this, so if you have a vow, you've made a vow at some stage, whether it was in some kind of sacred ceremony, which is usually past life. Vows usually travel through more than one life with you. It's usually made as a very strong reaction to stuff that was happening to you at the time. So for example, a vow of disappointment, if you lived one or more lifetimes where you are continually being let down and continually being disappointed, well, then surely it's just easier to be disappointed. So you make that vow, because the alternative is harder in your misconstrued thinking at the time, because of whatever it is that's going on with you, pain, anguish, love, or loss of love, whatever. So it's a form of protection which serves in a skewy kind of a way. But at this stage, we're kind of saying, no, I don't want to live those old ways anymore. The other way it can show up is you have the expectation of disappointment. So if you're looking forward to some great adventure happening, for example, and somehow you're attracting in some energy, because that's the very strong belief that you have, that you will be disappointed. In some way, you're going to be disappointed about that. Even, and I'll tell you an example of that. I often use myself as examples. So for me, it's not a vow of disappointment, but it's around feeling responsible for everybody's take on what I'm doing, kind of. Let me just tell you the example. So we travel a lot. We're European. We like to travel, get on planes, go in places. And when I met my husband, oh, I should say when I started dating him, we started going, we lived in, we grew up in Ireland and lived in London. And from there, you can travel to Europe very easily. So I started going to Europe with him. And we'd go on different vacations, and I'd get there and I'd think, this is awful. I don't like this. I don't. And so every single time we go on vacation, I have that reaction of, this is awful. I don't like this. And to the degree that now I know that that's what's going to happen. And then once I get over that, once I get through the energy of it, now it's not as intense or as strong as it was in those early days, because I've kind of learned what it is that's going on and worked on the issues. But it's a level of disappointment and a level of not liking change for me. So it's there. I recognize it, and it's like, oh, don't like this place very much. And then I get on with it and I have a great time.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of a real life example of how that can show up when it's something that's set up as a very old pattern for you. So that's the depth of this vow.
Yeah, I could see it.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yep.
All
Definitely.
So what we do for a vow is, I cannot clear the vow for you. I can clear the energy around the vow, and then at the end, you're going to remove the vow. So I'll say the vow removal prayer, and you just repeat it after me.
Okay.
So remove vow of disappointment. So the good news is that if you have a vow, you're not going to have any other homework. That's the hope.
I made it easy for me.
Yeah. Exactly. All right, we're going to do two more. So group 2, group 3. Myth and mask. So that's something that comes up fairly often. So a myth and a mask is, well, a mask is a role that we play, basically. So we play a role in life, mother, sister, daughter, if you're a woman, vice versa, if you're a man, teacher, magazine editor, whatever your official title is. So they're all roles that we play in life and serve us because they keep us functioning, basically, which we need to do. Even as spiritual beings, we need to function on this earth plane. Mm-hmm. When we have a myth and a mask, it's a mask that we, or a role that we play that is not true, or we play it to a degree that it's not true. So there may be some truth in it, but we use it as a deflection of not allowing people to access who we truly are, because we are judging ourselves and don't feel that we are worthy to show the world who we are. Make sense?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so I'm going to find out what yours is in this case. We all have many, but in this case. You have the myth and mask of radical. All right. So that to me means, oh, you tell me what you think it means first, because I have a good
okay
idea.
So this might be very like on the surface, but it was so interesting, just using the word mask, because I don't, if we're going to relate it to everything that's been happening, I don't believe the science that says masks work and all that kind of thing. And I think that people should be, take precautions, and, if they're immunocompromised or whatever. But I don't think that healthy people or children should be wearing masks all the time. And I think that people think that is a radical belief.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I don't know whether what it's coming up that the myth is that I'm radical, or, well, let me just say this. I will make these statements on Facebook, and I firmly believe them, and I know it's radical. And even the field that I'm in, I mean, unfortunately, natural medicine, a lot of people think is still radical,
Right.
like they just don't
Right.
believe in it. And
Yeah.
that's coming up a lot when I make people challenge me a lot.
Yeah.
And then I kind of feel like discouraged, I guess. Like, why don't people understand this? Why don't they trust their immune system?
Right.
Why, like, how come more people don't believe in natural medicine? I don't think it's radical, but
Yeah. Right.
so
However, on a deeper level, you have a belief that it is radical, otherwise that would not be being reflected back at you.
right.
So I think the reality is that radical is being judged these days. And that's the judgment, the human level of the judgment of what we believe, that is the false part of it. Because everyone can have their beliefs. You can have your beliefs about masks, you can have your beliefs about vaccines. It doesn't mean you're radical, it just means that you have your own views on this topic. But because we're so polarized at the moment, it's gone into this, oh, she's radical.
Right.
And there's a part of you that believes it. And what we're actually doing on the planet at the moment is we're moving towards unity consciousness. And to get towards unity consciousness, one has to experience the poles. So there is a chart called polarity traps that may come up next, we'll see, where the soul is looking to achieve balance or unity by experiencing the opposites. So it's like if you are very quiet naturally, introverted, you're in a group and you don't talk a lot, and the teacher says maybe one day, okay, next time we meet, everyone is to switch roles. So anyone who's normally quiet is to be more expressive, and vice versa, which is very difficult to do because
Right.
it's so against. However, if you go from that extreme of very quiet to the other opposite, you will end up experiencing this, but it kind of brings both back into alignment.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of, the radical to me is very judging and very polarizing. So it's maybe looking at your own judgment of that word and how you feel judged by others because of your own judgment. But what's the reality? It's just they're your beliefs. And as open-minded humans, we can have very extreme beliefs compared to the people who have the opposite belief. But a true spiritual, what's the word I'm looking for? A true spiritual adventurer can be open to seeing new perspectives and changing their views. So it's like if you go to a workshop which is talking about stuff that you just do not believe in, but in an open way that's like, no, this is something I don't believe in, but maybe one day I'll have information or intuition or feelings that shift how my belief system is.
Right.
So that, I think, is more of the balance. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Last one. Let's see what it is. Be funny if it was polarity trap. Probably won't be now because I said it. It is. Polarity traps. Okay, so I kind of explained polarity traps. It's the polarity. We have the duality nature, good, bad, right, wrong, up, down. And there is a lot of, it's like, I see it a lot these days. It's like you can't have the sunshine without the rain. You can't have happiness without the sadness. And I'm going, why not? Why can't you just have it? But anyway, that's my process. So we are, as a planet, moving towards this unity consciousness. So all the polarity has to come up to be healed. We have to work through this process to get to that place of unity. There was something else I was going to say, but it's gone. If it comes back, I'll tell you otherwise. So you have a polarity trap of spontaneous versus planned.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Explain.
Because my energy can be very structured, like in the box. Right. You know, I'm disciplined. You know, I have my own business. I know that if I don't get up and do the job, nobody's doing the job. So I push myself very hard from that perspective. But there's also a big part of me that's like, the analogy is like training a thoroughbred. You know, you can't train I believe really any animal to the point of exhaustion. It has to be fun for the animal. So they're going to work hard, but once you see that the horse is like done training, you got to let them be done with it. Yeah. Because if they stop loving what they're doing, they're never going to be, you know, winners or amazing, whatever it is. So I think that I know that. And so I try to like give myself time off or whatever, but then sometimes I end up feeling guilty about it. Like, oh, you know, I took a Tuesday off to go do blah, blah, blah. I really should be working, you know, like I have my own business. I really should be doing that. So I know that I need that balance. Yet even when I allow it, you know, like this is the whole reason why I started a business, was so that I could make my own hours and I could choose when I go on vacation, when I take time off, when I go to the gym, when I run, whatever it might be. Right. But then there's always kind of in the back of my mind, should I be doing this? Like, is that really responsible? I really had these other things that I should have gotten done today. So that's what it means to me.
So what's coming to me is, as you talk about that, is it's a planned spontaneity.
That is absolutely right.
Yeah. So it's like you're still stuck in the planned pole of the planned versus spontaneous. Spontaneous is you're just sitting here having a chat with me and it's like, I'm done. I'm getting up and I'm going for an ice cream. So that's like true spontaneity. So the reality is in life, and this is a very easy one to explain compared to some of the other ones, it's like it's not healthy to be in the planned all the time. And it's not healthy to be in the spontaneous all the time. And even the planned spontaneity is a step in the right direction, but maybe the planned spontaneity could be more around, I'm giving myself the day off on Tuesday and I'll see what I feel like doing on Tuesday. So more that kind of spontaneity. Or maybe one day you're not busy and just decide, I'm taking the rest of the day off. So kind of making it more spontaneous. But what often happens, what I've seen, is that people can tend to either be stuck in one of the poles. So I would see more being in the planned, I think maybe 80% of the time, and the other 20 is kind of trying to get into the spontaneous and doing it that way. Whereas if you have a completely spontaneous person in your life, it's like you can't plan anything, you can't do anything, you can't rely on them, blah. So that's not the other extreme that you want either. So it's the balance of the two.
Right.
So if now that you have an awareness, it's like, okay, I'm more in the pole of the plan side. How do I shift? How do I have more awareness? And again, go to that other extreme for a period so that then your natural tendency is to more be in balance.
Yeah, and also I think that when, hence the worn out, right? Like when you're
Absolutely.
always, when every single minute is planned, I also find that over the years, this is so funny. Whenever I go on vacation and I'm truly like, completely relaxed, I'm not thinking about work, whatever, I'll get like 10 people contact me about writing and advertising for the magazine out of the blue. It's always like, my ex used to say to me, like, Di, why don't you go on vacation? Because, we want to generate some more revenue. Because every time you go, like, that's what happens. And I think that, like, I get into this, um, it's almost like when I have everything planned, I end up doing a lot of busy work. I'm not necessarily even accomplishing that much because I'm forcing myself to work. I could just be checking email all day long,
Yeah.
right? So I'm not really focusing. I'm not really, I'm like in the business, not working on the business, not, coming up with new ideas and things like
Mm.
that. I'm more about, oh, I got to do the day to day every single day. And I find when I do something spontaneous or I do have time off or whatnot, I come back definitely with a different attitude and more
Right.
refreshed and I'm more productive.
Yeah. And the American culture is not conducive to taking decent vacations.
Mm-mm.
I mean, obviously, I come from Europe. We go away for 2 weeks every summer. I don't do that anymore, but that was the norm, is that you go away and you switch off completely. You usually you're going in those days, not so much I'm sure now, but in those days when you left, you'd know, well, there wasn't even Wi-Fi in those days. I mean, you were lucky even if you had a TV. So you were literally doing what you went to do, maybe reading books or whatever, but you had no contact with
Right.
your family or the rest of the world. So completely switching off. And there's a lot more vacation time in those countries. So the American culture does not work towards having that spontaneity. The other way is that for me personally, how I learned to be okay with doing nothing was being sick for a long period of time. And you don't want to do it that way. You want to get it before you have to be sick.
That's happened to me.
And
and
literally walk from one room to the other room. That's a major accomplishment.
yeah, usually I'll get some sort of cold or whatever.
Yeah.
And my intuition says to me, like, or, like just my higher entity says to me, like, you're sick because the universe forced you to take time off, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is why you're
Yeah.
sick. It's not random.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So let's find out what you're trying to learn. What's your soul saying you need, or your growth potential, which is the official term for it? Oh, you're going to love this one. Your growth potential is nurturing.
Wow, that's interesting.
So, nurturing, I always qualify these growth potentials as soul level growth. So, it's not about nurturing everyone around you or nurturing the magazine. It's that true self nurturing, learning how to nurture you, which most of us have not been taught how to do. It's a new skill set, and your soul is going, I want you to get this. I want you to nurture yourself in every moment of every day. So you're mothering yourself, nurturing yourself. So that's what you're looking for.
Yeah, I could see that. And definitely, it aligns with everything else, like not allowing, myself to take time off or
Yeah,
feeling guilty about it,
yeah,
not being spontaneous when that's like a huge part of where I get joy from and
yeah,
that kind of thing. Totally.
yeah. So let's see. Let's clear it. We'll do the disappointment, and then I'm going to close down the session, and we can chat a little bit more for a minute or two about how to proceed. Okay, nice deep breath. Please conduct the following healing for Diane and transmute all requested energies to divine love, light, and truth so that full healing will take place. I ask at this time for the core trauma of worn out to be healed energetically at all levels of thought and action. I ask that it be healed in all 96 intensity levels. I ask that the core fear of not caring enough and the core belief of what's the point of trying be healed energetically at all levels of thought and action. I ask that the emotional block and the energy associated with the vow of disappointment be healed energetically at all levels of thought and action. I ask that the myth and mask of radical be healed energetically at all levels of thought and action. I ask that the polarity trap of spontaneous versus planned be healed energetically at all levels of thought and action. I ask that all these patterns be healed exponentially so that true and deeper healing will result for Diane's current life experiences and all future life experiences at all levels. I ask that the growth potential of nurturing remain in the Akashic field, free from any and all traumatic circumstances that may have been associated with their true path and purpose. Thank you, thank you, thank you, and so let it be. And take another nice big breath. And then repeat after me. You doing okay?
I'm good.
Okay. I wish to release and transmute this intense belief
I wish to release and transmute this intense belief
that I have, which is currently in conflict
that I have, which is currently in conflict
with my highest good.
with my highest good.
I specifically include the vow of disappointment
the vow of disappointment
that is adversely affecting me at this time.
that is adversely affecting me at this time.
I consciously release now
I consciously release now
all pain, guilt, anger,
all pain, guilt, anger,
or other non-harmonious feelings
or other non-harmonious feelings
that may be associated with my creation
that may be associated with my creation
or participation in this vow.
or participation in this vow.
Please remove any such vows I've ever made,
Please remove any such vows I've ever made,
either knowingly or unknowingly,
either knowingly or unknowingly,
from my Akashic field,
from my Akashic field,
so that they no longer create a barrier
so that they no longer create a barrier
to my growth and self-awareness.
to my growth and self-awareness.
I choose now to release them
I choose now to release them
at all levels of thought, word, and deed,
at all levels of thought, word, and deed,
and embrace fully my highest path and purpose.
and embrace fully my highest path and purpose.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
So let it be.
So let it be.
Doing okay?
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
I mean, it all completely resonated with me, and you know, I've done a lot of, like you said in the beginning, I've done a lot of healing work, and I look at this as, you know, we were talking before, and you were saying, you know, sometimes people get really emotional about it, and I can totally see that. My emotion tends to be more about like excitement and what to look forward to, I think. And so I feel more like happier. Not that it's people feeling sad, I guess, but um I my emotions are more about, it just feels like a really, like a more peaceful kind of cleansing forward movement for me.
Yeah, lighter is the word that's
Yeah.
coming to me. Yeah. All right, let me close this out and disconnect from your records. So the purpose of the closing prayer is to close it, obviously, but also to expand the energies to include anything else that we didn't talk about. So I ask divine energies to identify all non-harmonious negative energies, patterns, or additional life programs that may be presently blocking the growth of Diane. I ask for the liberation of any related patterns that are ready to be released at this time as a result of this session. I ask that Diane's growth be expedited now and that greater possibilities unfold for her in the future. I ask that all negative energies surrounding her past traumas be transmuted to divine love and that all her memories be endowed with divine wisdom in order to resolve them fully and completely at all levels. Please remove any limited or blocked life perceptions. I ask that you expand her consciousness to allow for greater possibilities at all levels of thought and action. Infuse her being with all the divine energies available to her. Open Diane's heart to receive this energy at all levels. Ensure her subconscious and conscious mind are fully and completely connected during all life situations. Allow her awareness to be completely opened now in order to reveal truth and remove illusions. Allow her path and purpose to be communicated with clarity of spirit, mind, and body. Release all patterns of fear that may be associated with Diane's true path and purpose. Please illuminate the most appropriate path for healing under all conditions. Thank you, thank you, thank you, and so let it be. And please now disconnect us from the Akashic field of Diane Hurlbut, born on 2/8/68. Are we disconnected? Yes, we are. And we are complete.
Thank you. That was amazing. I love it.
Good. All right, so that is one life program. So in some sessions, depending on how long you're going and what's coming up, you can do 2, even potentially 3.
Okay. So they would all have, well, not necessarily, but I mean, other things that might be coming up are other vows that you've made, other polarities. Okay.
Yeah, it's like you have a whole new core trauma,
Mm-hmm.
core fear and core belief, and then the other energies. However, there is usually, if you're doing it in one session, I should say, there is a relationship between all of the life programs. And it's usually pretty obvious, but not always.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And then what I will often talk about after a session is that this takes a period of time to integrate. So this is not one of those sessions that you want to do every week. People who do them regularly, if they come back after a month, I'll check whether they're ready for another one, or 6 weeks is a good average. And what people experience afterwards varies by the person, varies by the session. So you can feel light and elated and like the best thing that's ever happened to you ever in your whole entire life, to feeling all those feelings that you had repressed for so long, and anywhere in between.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think for me, like the thing about disappointment and, those things have come up before for me in other readings. So it's not like it's the first time that I've seen it. And so I feel like I have, processed a lot of the hurt around it.
Yeah.
Hey, maybe that's why, the emotions for me about it now are more lighter.
Yeah.
And and but I could see, I mean, I have experienced it where it was definitely more heavier and like a sadness, actually.
Yeah. And this is its core. So it's like you have done, as we talk about the layers of the onion, and now we're getting into the core part of it. So it doesn't mean you're never going to feel disappointed ever again. And it doesn't mean you're never going to feel worn out, but we are clearing it from, or not clearing it, because you never clear anything out of the Akashic records, but you're taking the non-resolution of the trauma and resolving it energetically, so that then it can be integrated into the whole. So it becomes part of your experiential energy body rather than it's causing these issues.
Right. Yeah. So are you looking at like a book or something when you were doing the reading?
What I have is I have a manual.
Okay.
And in that manual, I have all the charts. So I'm referring to the manual for, and you'd think after this time I'd know all this stuff off by heart, but I don't. I prefer to just read it.
Mm-hmm.
So I refer to the opening prayer, the charts, the closing, and I'm reading that from the manual. And then all the rest of the manual is when I train people, is when I go through the rest of the manual. So during a session, you don't need to go have the whole manual as a practitioner, but there are references in the manual for stuff that a practitioner will need. So I always have it on hand.
And how do you find out like what the vow is, or whether it's even a vow or that kind of thing? You mentioned you're using a pendulum, or?
Yeah, I'm using a pendulum, and I'm accessing the information through a chart system.
Right.
So I have one master chart, which has every chart on it. So once I do the core trauma, always have a core trauma, always have an intensity level, always have a core fear, and always have a core belief. So I access those through the charts. And then I go back to the master chart and ask, what is the next chart we need to use for the highest good for this client?
Mm-hmm.
And then I find out the chart and what the information is on the chart.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about, you have classes that you teach. I mean, obviously, you do these healings
Yeah,
for individual people, but you also have a whole
yeah,
class series. Tell us a little bit about that.
I do. I actually have two coming up. Um, the nearly full one is module 3 of the Enhanced Year of Healing, and that starts January of 2022 and runs for 4 months, 1 weekend a month. At this stage, I only have one spot left in that. So if anyone wants to do that, it's like, now is your time. Then because that was filling up so rapidly, I put in a series of evenings. So 20 Wednesday evenings, which would be the equivalent of 4 weekends, where we go through the whole training. So it starts January 24th and is every Wednesday evening until November 3rd. And that training is basically the same as the module 3. It's just we're spreading it over a longer period of time. And I also have been doing one-on-one training. So I have 5 or 6 students who I am individually training. So we meet once a week for anywhere from 16 to 20 weeks and go through all the material. And that way, I like that because it's, you have the individual attention, the student has the individual attention, and I can see more clearly when I'm working with one person where it is that they need more support. Because when I train anybody, I want to make sure that once they're completely trained, they know what they're doing when they're finished.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
I have lots of checks and measures in those systems to make sure that everyone is doing it effectively and know what they're doing.
Right.
So
So, I mean, you're essentially training them to be practitioners to
yeah,
do what you do. Okay.
yeah, yeah. So I have, I think I've got 3 have completed and 2 more working on completion and 1 more still in the process. So I have a few practitioners getting out there. So that's
That is
exciting.
awesome. That's exciting.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
And this is kind of one of those modalities that is very popular at the moment.
Oh, I think so. Like we said in the beginning, I think so many people are now taking a step back to think about, what do I really want to do?
Yeah,
I don't really resonate with this job that I
yeah.
have anymore.
And what I love about this modality is you do have the chart. So it's very laid out, how the structure of the how-to, but then you also have the interpretation of the energy. So that's where you kind of get into the intuition and the conversations with the client and the back and forth and, oh, that's interesting, and seeing the different perspectives. So you have elements of, as if we were doing polarities, we have elements of the planned and the spontaneous in there.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
that's cool.
Yep. Yeah. And honestly, one person's interpretation might be different from another's. And
Totally.
it's just, I mean, you definitely pointed out some things to me that I would not have thought of, as far as interpreting it.
Yeah.
And, my mind went to one place, and then you were kind of like, well, actually that's planned spontaneity. It's not, it's not true spontaneity.
I thought I was being spontaneous.
Yeah, exactly right.
And then the interpretation, if I did the same session with somebody else, it could be completely interpretation, or even with you on a different day, it could be a different interpretation.
Right.
So you kind of, you're flowing with the energy.
Yeah. And also I think because it could be about different parts of your life. Like this was really focused towards my business or career, let's say.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
what is my purpose here as far as my, what am I going to give back and what's my career? But it could be related to family or relationships,
Yeah.
health.
Yeah. And what I have done in the past is I've done group Akashic Field healings. One of them was a series of relationships. So relationships with money, relationships with your body, relationships with your partner, relationships with food, relationships with God. So I think it was 8 in the series, and I did them once a month. And as doing it as a group, so that anyone who came together in the group, we were kind of clearing that energy for that group. I also did, at the beginning of the coronavirus, I do a weekly group healing for the coronavirus. That was very interesting. So I did that for about 2 months, I think. And then I just like, okay, you're done with that. You don't need to do that anymore.
Yeah.
So there's very different ways you can use it. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, that's okay. I was just thinking, is it like today, it feel to me like you were looking at what was the most important thing for me to clear today.
Yeah.
So it's not, or can it be a situation where, like, what if I had said to you, I want to clear something related to a health issue or
Yeah.
my relationship? Can you be specific like that, or is it more?
Yeah.
Is it better?
So what I've kind of discovered over the years is, particularly for people I don't know very well, I prefer to just let the highest good pick whatever it is. But that doesn't always happen. So if I'm having a conversation with a client about what's going on in their life and they're talking about their medical condition that they're wanting to clear, it will very often be reflected in the session. And then later on, as I've worked with someone more and more, and it's like, oh, I really want to work on another layer of healing my stuff around money and receiving. So we can do it that way. It's like set the intention that that's what we're doing. So you can do it any way you want.
Either way. Yep. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Awesome. So how can people get in contact with you? Any information you want to give people to reach out?
Yes, I have 2 websites. The first one is soulhealingjourney.com, SOUL healingjourney.com. And that website has all my modalities, and it has a link at the bottom where you can book a session if that's what you choose to do. And I haven't differentiated sessions by type, more by time. And then my second website is Academy for Soul Healing. So Academy, ACADEMY, for SOUL healing.com. And that lists all the Academy classes that I've got currently running. And it's constantly updated because I'm always finishing one class and slotting in another one. And then the other way, if you want to reach me personally, you can email me. So it's Eilis, which is spelt, and I'm going to spell it slowly because otherwise you'll never get it. It's EILIS at soulhealingjourney.com. Or you can call me at 203-767-5954. So they're all the different ways you can reach me. Or if you're one of my friends on Facebook, just message me.
Yep. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for what you do. I think it's so important, and this is awesome information. And I appreciate you doing the demo on me. I learned a ton, and I just think it was so valuable. And I think I'm going to come back to intuition. I think intuitively, if we really check in with ourselves, like when you said you're worn out, like it wasn't a surprise to me, like when I'm really checked into my intuition, I knew that.
Yeah.
But yet it's more about, for me, it's more about, okay, you know it. Now, what do you do about it? Sometimes you can't get out of your own way. So working with you and bringing up all the other little details around it, like a vow that I had made and that kind of thing, helps me feel like, okay, I can do something about this. So, we're going to clear this, and now I can move forward and, just do what I came here to do, essentially. Like to me, what's, what I hate to see is people that are struggling when they're just, they just can't figure out a way to do what they came here to do. And, they get kind of trapped in these things. And so I feel like working with you is really, really amazing and helpful for people to make those changes. And you just are, it's I mean, it's just so much better. I mean, I think from, anytime you're not happy in what you're doing or you're struggling with something, that's going to affect every area of your life, health, your
Mm,
relationships, even your job, obviously.
right,
And so, I think getting to a place where you can clear a lot of that and you're happier, lighter will just, help
right,
you be where you want to be in all areas, really.
absolutely. And looking at your growth potential of nurturing, what if we could nurture ourselves while we were going through our stuck places so that then it would open up being able to access why we're stuck, because there's always a reason why, and it's always part of the journey.
Yep.
So
Yep.
nurturing is key.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And for some of us, that's the challenge,
Yeah, most
right?
of us, because we have not, our parents didn't know how to nurture themselves. They weren't taught, so they didn't teach us. And it's back through the family lineage and ancestral lines. So we're clearing it for ourselves as women and men, for our cultures, for our lineage. We're doing this on a grand scale at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's much needed, and I think we're going to see some amazing times ahead for sure.
I think so.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Ailish, for being with us today and all your time and everything. And this podcast lives on our website at naturalnutmeg.com, and it'll also be e-blasted out to all of our readers. And I'm sure people will be getting in touch with you.
Cool. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody, and have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.